Oh great, more fucking drama. So, Cheshire and Steve McRae are currently engaged in a game of gas match and dumpster, and of course it blew up. Cheshire is of the opinion that she was screwed out of money for her services, along with being screwed out of a certain position on a particular project you may have heard of, the Non-sequitur Show. Steve McRae, on the other hand, maintains that her complaints are a crock of shit best left for the Tooth Fairy, since made-up issues can easily be solved by made-up entities, so we're off to a fabulous start already. So what is my position in all of this? Well, quite simply, Steve McRae is in the right, and you all are damn right that I have his back. I will not be gaslit into lying to both myself and all of you fine people watching this video right now. So we will be addressing some of Cheshire's points that are floating around, but first, we need to establish some facts. From day one, Steve McRae owned the Non-sequitur Show YouTube channel, the very same channel that was stolen from him by Kyle Curtis, and he fought like hell to rightfully get his fucking show back. During this time though, I made Steve promise to never give control or ownership of the channel to somebody else. If Steve ever went down that path again, I would have cut ties with him and the show immediately. Why? Well, that shit was reckless in the past, and I wasn't going to tolerate it again. And of course, Cheshire was well aware that this was my firm position regarding the channel's ownership. She was also aware that Steve agreed with me that surrendering control was a dipshit move in the first place, and he would never do that again in the future. Again, she was aware of all of this. Any claim to the contrary is a fucking lie. So with that, yes, the current drama revolves around non-sec, but specifically, it's in regards to Cheshire's position on the show and the compensation offered and received. So with that, let's answer some nonsense. Number 1. Cheshire did so much work for the Non-sequitur Show during the legal battle. She promoted non-sec, she fought for you, Steve, and she deserves compensation for her PR work before you got your access back. Right. Here's the thing. No, she doesn't. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, I too fought for Steve and told Kyle to eat a dick on multiple occasions, and I wasn't alone. The whole community came together and gave a very firm fuck you to Kyle for pulling the shit that he pulled, and Cheshire was part of that unified front. Both I and Steve were under the impression that Cheshire was of the same mindset as the rest of you fine people who haven't sent us a bill in the mail. So, the rest of you essentially. That mindset being, we are fighting against Kyle on principle because it is the right thing to do. However, when it comes to Cheshire, I guess we were fucking wrong on that, because apparently, she equates her troll bashing and stating the fucking obvious on Twitter sometimes as actual PR work, and not as something one does in their free time when they see some obvious bullshit on the internet. And since it's PR work, it of course has a price. And to the surprise of everybody, we should be on the hook for that? Yeah, what a twist. That's kind of fucked up, especially when you consider the total lack of any contract, communication of expectations, and the fact that she went ahead despite these two things in the first place. There was no contract, there was no deal, there was no promise in regards to your PR work, in quotes, Chesh. That's the first reason Steve was absolutely right when he said that your PR work was worth $0 and you would be paid as much for it. Steve never agreed to pay whatever figure you're pulling out of your ass, and that is the case whether you're serious with that bullshit or just making a point. Whatever the fuck that means. But for the second reason Steve is right in regards to your PR bullshit, let's start with my contributions to Non-sequitur. I provided damn good content for the show. I was in debates, which generated a fuck ton of traffic and engagement. I worked with Steve and Kyle to secure amazing guests. They even put my logo on a t-shirt and sold it as official merch. And then, after Kyle committed his criminal act against Steve, it was my channel that broke the news. As time went on, I stayed on top of this shit through every filing, providing updates and debunking pro-Kyle bullshit along the way, right alongside you. I had multiple streams with OPT lawyer reading the dockets submitted so an actual lawyer who is worth a damn could decipher the legal jargon. I did all of this and more over a period of 3 years. And for my contributions, I am owed the same amount you are owed, Chesh. $0. But why? Why do I say that we are owed $0, Chesh? I mean, after all, we did the work. Because Steve McRae is my friend. And he was yours too. And that is reason number 2. We don't pay friends to do friend shit. If we had known that you would eventually pull this kind of nonsense, I'm sure we would have told you to fuck off, since we are of the strong opinion that friendship is not a subscription-based service. Now, you guys may want to sit down for this one, because I'm about to blow your fucking mind. Because how much is she asking for? How much does she want for all the PR work that she did for Non-Sec? $50,000. I shit you not. But wait, there's more. She also wanted an additional $15,000 for Steve supposedly breaking a gentleman's agreement to not talk about the negotiations for 48 hours. I find this hilarious for many reasons. So I'm going to dismiss that $15,000 thing as a joke and pretend that it was never brought up. But even then, Chesh, you expect us to believe that because you have the ability to trace on a tablet without a contract and make fuck you Kyle tweets every now and then, that you are entitled to the value of a BMW 4 Series? Fuck you. Like, holy sh... So, to recap, Steve never agreed to pay you anything for your PR work, and secondly, you don't pull this kind of shit on a friend. So on principle, eat a dick. But with that, we move on to the next issue. What was actually discussed? And was the deal Chesh ended up with a fair deal? So let's start with Caffeine Corner. Cheshire agreed to do Caffeine Corner under a fixed percentage, and for her time on the show, she was indeed paid out in full. We have receipts for that just in case. This was done on a per episode basis, and since Cheshire was part of the show for over 60 fucking episodes, one can safely assume that she was happy with the compensation she was receiving. And during my many conversations with her, she never said she was unhappy with her time on Caffeine Corner. If anything, she would bend over backwards to not miss it. And she confirmed with me, multiple times in fact, that she was in fact getting paid for it. The reason why I bring this up is simple. If she considers her time on Caffeine Corner as PR work, it is important to note that she agreed with the deal that she was given. Compensation was actually discussed for Caffeine Corner, and she did receive it. If she had any issues with the amount that she was getting paid, she could have bounced out of the show and out of Steve's life at any time. But she didn't. She stayed. So what does that tell you? Based on her actions alone, she agreed that it was a fair deal. And based on my conversations with her, she also agreed it was a fair deal. So, for Caffeine Corner, no issue, job done. In regards to the Non-Sequitur Show, this is where shit gets good. Upon Kyle returning the channel to Steve because, you know, Chesh would be co-host, entitled to 50% of the profit. I would mostly be in the background, and I would take no cut from the profit. However, I would maintain my influence and aid in the decision-making process whenever I felt it was needed. This was perfectly fine with Chesh, and it was understood by all parties that the details would be hammered out upon the channel's return. But right at the start of this, she did have some guarantees, most notably regarding her 50% cut. If Cheshire wanted something more, like actual fucking ownership, and we'll get back to that in a moment, she could have told Steve before doing any work on Non-Sec. The fact that she went ahead and did a few episodes without Steve signing on the dotted line is on her. But let's be fair here. I think Steve fucked up here as well, because I do not think it was a good idea to start the show back up without signatures being collected and filed. At the very least, Steve should have not have allowed Chesh to appear on Non-Sec until negotiations were completed. but I'm sure Steve denying Chesh's appearance would have caused a different shit show entirely, so... But I'm getting a little ahead here, so back on topic. Despite no official contract being made, Cheshire was never denied her 50% cut, so while a little reckless on her part, she knew Steve would pay her, because she knows that Steve is not a dishonest piece of shit. Imagine that. But at the end of the day, he was willing to work with her and make that contract a reality. In fact, a good motherfucker named Chris took the initiative and wrote up a draft contract that practically gave Cheshire everything she could ask for and more. In fact, it's so worth going down the list, so let's do that. Number 1, Cheshire would be entitled to 50% of the profits from the Non-Sequitur Show. This would formally start on Cheshire's first appearance as a co-host. Number 2, Cheshire would keep her position as a co-host for a guaranteed 12 months. Only she can terminate her relationship with the Non-Sequitur Show before the 12 months is up. I'm assuming as long as she doesn't start promoting the Westboro Baptist Church or some crazy shit like that. Number 3, if the relationship between Cheshire and the show is terminated, she can still get her half of the residuals for a period of time equivalent to her time as co-host. So if she was on Non-Sec for a year, she would get residuals from the shows that she was on for a year after that. And given what we said about her guaranteed position for 12 months, assuming she doesn't leave on her own, she would be starting with guaranteed payments for 2 years at least. Number 4, Steve agrees to pay Cheshire the residuals for shows prior to her formally being involved in the Non-Sequitur Show once these residuals covered the $5,000 legal fees. This was later reduced in Cheshire's favor to only $2,500. Damn. Number 5, Cheshire is free to do other projects, whether that's to work on her own channel or work with other shows. All that is required is that she show up and not engage in any activity that could fuck over non-sec. Number 6, Cheshire gets to see the financials, point blank. And number 7, she can walk away at any time and it will not impact her residuals. Well, holy shit, that was a bitchin' deal. Especially the part where she couldn't get dropped by Steve for a whole year and could look forward to residuals from episodes that she had fuck all to do with. Yet even with all of this and the fact that she had the opportunity to negotiate for even more shit in her favor, she rejected everything outright. Well, fine I guess. But that doesn't mean I have to ignore the fact that this was a sweet offer, and I won't. At this point, it's an established fact that Cheshire got a damn good deal with this, considering that between the two of them, Cheshire would be the only one making money for a number of months. Steve, on the other hand, would be looking forward to the day that he can say, well, at least I broke even. But Steve wasn't going to complain. That's what it means to be an owner sometimes. And speaking of which, this leads us to the next issue. She wanted to be considered an owner in some way. After looking over the facts, I can't figure out in what sense Cheshire wanted to be an owner. Are we talking by title only, or are we talking about making that shit legal in some way? Since I don't know the exact answer to that, I'm just going to tackle the why. In my opinion, Cheshire wanted that status so Steve could not override her when it came to key decisions for the channel, because at the end of the day, the channel is Steve's, and Steve will do with the channel whatever he damn well fucking pleases. She also wanted to strip Steve of any authority to straight up dump her off the show at any time, since it would be her channel too. Basically, she wanted Non-Sec to be just as much her property as it was Steve's. And let me tell you something, that was never going to fucking happen. Not only because it was unneeded to have a successful deal between the two of them, but because she did not fucking deserve it. The issue is this. The only people to make any money from Non-Sec thus far is Kyle and Cheshire. Steve McRae, on the other hand, is $5,000 in the hole for this shit, and Cheshire never offered to help out with that as a supposed owner. How in the fuck can she claim to be an owner, and how can she make that demand, while at the same time not taking on any of the risk that comes with being a fucking owner? And all while knowing damn well the financial hit Steve was taking in real time. Her actions speak louder than any tweet that she could ever make. She was more than happy to have Steve handle all the shit that comes with being an owner, especially when it came to breaking out the fucking checkbook, while she sat on her ass saying good luck with that. You know, it's actually funny that I mentioned BMW previously because she is just like their drivers. Everybody wants a BMW until it's time to do BMW shit. But not only did she not adopt any risk for her pseudo-ownership of the channel, she then tried to get Steve to pay her out to the tune of $50,000. Look, in terms of buying into the business, Cheshire, you're going backwards there. Point blank, fuck that. I don't give a shit how she tries to justify that absurd figure. I did more for the success of the Non-Sequitur Show, and I would never value my input as being anywhere close to 50 fucking grand. This shows me with little doubt she did not enter negotiations in good faith, because nobody in their right mind would think that price gouging is a good way to strike a deal with somebody, and nobody in their right mind would demand such a figure from a guy that they know for a fact doesn't have that money in the first place. Steve hasn't won the lottery. Steve wasn't the one to find Forrest Finn's treasure in the goddamn Rockies, so how in the fuck was this a good faith request? Yeah, demand the impossible, reject the reasonable, and then cry victim after getting paid what you're actually owed and told to fuck off. Chesh, while I do agree that you were given piss poor advice, and I'm sorry about that, this shit is still on you. You have nobody to blame but yourself for this. In closing, I am 100% on Steve's side here, and I think I've explained exactly why very clearly. Until the very end, he tried to do right by Chesh, and that has my respect. But Steve, I have a favor to ask. Just put this shit to bed, my dude. Just walk away from this shit and focus on having fun with Non-Sec. Let this video be the end of it for you. For the next few months, I want you to just focus on having philosophical debates, religious debates, scientific debates, maybe even a few discussions on current events, because let me tell you, there's some shit happening in the world right now. In my opinion, Non-Sequitur should be about exploring topics that are larger than any one person and larger than any one group, and I know you feel the same. Subjects on Non-Sec, they should surround humanity as a whole, and I know that's your blueprint. I want you to just focus on that blueprint. By not paying attention to all the negativity, you will be able to put all your energy into Non-Sequitur. So I ask you as a friend, focus on that and nothing else for the time being. So with that, that is my say, that is my take. And this is where the subject dies, at least for us. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a good night.